The Manufacturing Modernisation Fund provides manufacturers with grants ranging between $50,000 to $1 million for between 25% to 50% for new manufacturing machinery. Let's have a look at the approach that I would take to completing this application. So if you Google the Manufacturing Modernisation Fund, you should land on this page here by business.gov.au. And the first thing I would do is look at the objectives. So are you going to modernise your facility, adopt new technologies, become more productive and create more jobs? Now, this wasn't so much a focus in the past, but it's going to be a focus at the moment. So these overview or the objectives may change, but that is going to be the focus of it. And keep in mind that, putting on new equipment does make you more efficient and tends to put off jobs. So if you're going to become neutral in your job count, you may not get it. So you really need to be growing substantially and putting on more jobs in order to get this grant. So scroll through and you can see, as I mentioned, $50,000. This is for the small grants, and that covers 50% of the eligible costs, up to $1 million for 25% of the eligible costs. And then various eligibility, which you can check for yourself. An approach I often take is to look at who they funded in the past. Who do they like? And have a look at the types of projects that they have funded. So if we just go from the first one, 17 Ross Proprietary Limited, automated functional chocolate production. Okay, chocolate, that sounds good. They like food. Keep in mind that there is a few priority areas that they're focusing on at the moment, so it may have changed a bit between the last round to this current round. So focus on the priority areas. They may not have updated it just yet. Does your project sound cool? You need to picture ScoMo coming out to your premises and cutting a ribbon. What is the manufacturing, the Minister for Manufacturing? Who do they want to come and cut a ribbon for? Who do they want to announce? So you need to be cool, the toppest of the cool projects. Here we are, Adelaide Trimmings, not sure what they do. Standard production process, doesn't sound overly cool, but advanced composite structures, that sounds pretty cool to me. So try to make it sound cool. Anything with robotics or automation is going to do well. But then on the negative side is that you put on robotics and automation, it doesn't necessarily lead to more jobs. So there's a bit of a playoff that you've got to have with your project. Let's scroll down and see what else we're doing. What do I like? Anything with the CNC is generally pretty good. What this doesn't say is what they're making. So if you're making something that 400 other companies in Australia make, it's not going to look as good as you are the only one in Australia making it, let alone make it in the world. So the more you are exporting, the more attractive you are to investment for the government. So one area they like to look at is competitive neutrality. So they don't want to be giving you money and then a month later you're putting someone else out of work because you've taken on all the work because you are now cheaper than your competitor, and therefore the net jobs is going to be negative. So you need to be seen to be growing above and beyond what the market is supplying, or be the only supplier in that field. Okay, so what else jumps out to me? Another CNC. There's been a bit in the brewing and the domestic sort of alcohol market. Flow Hive factory, they've got a bit of press in the past. Another CNC. So plenty in the CNC market. So we've got more wine, more alcohol, more CNC. Another CNC. So CNCs, if you're doing CNC, that's looking pretty good. What else? New filling and capping lines. So I'm not sure what they do. Anything with 3D scanning, that sounds pretty good to me. Whereas I thought, sheet metal fabrication isn't as sexy as other things that are out there. Depends what it is that they're making. So if you're a general sheet metal fabricator, that's there's hundreds of them out there. You need to be doing something different that others aren't doing. So you can't be more of a job shop. You need to be making your own product in order to get this grant. So Compare yourself. This is for the small grants. There's also the larger grants, which you can have a look at as well. So see how your project stacks up. So and then align it to the objectives and try to make sure that it does sound pretty cool. You know, it's if you summarise your project onto one page, how cool does it sound? And things you want to highlight are jobs, and if you can, export and or import replacement. So let's jump over to the application form. So the application forms are all online these days. So what I normally do is copy, you can save it as you go, PDF it, and then you can extract all that and put that into a Word document. It just makes it easier to edit along the way. So let's scroll through. So basic eligibility. Obviously make sure that you're incorporated in Australia. Nothing too fancy in here. Accountant declaration. Make sure you've got that form. That just means that you can fund your share of the project costs. And this one here, commercial production ready for manufacturing. If you're not going to make a commercial product at the end, you are not eligible. So really be past your R&D and commercialisation phase if you want to get this grant. And once again, keep in mind that this application may change slightly. So applicant details, trustee details, ANZIC, so which manufacturing code are you sitting in? Where is the business website? Nothing too different there. So last financial years. So I normally do a financial model, and if you look on my other posts that I've put up either on YouTube or LinkedIn, I've walked through a financial model that I've put together in how to best present your project for a grant application. So a startup manufacturer isn't going to look as good as a long-term manufacturer. So you want to show that you're a going concern and show that you are growing. The government is about low risk, so you try to de-risk the project as much as possible. And unfortunately, a long-standing manufacturer is going to look better than a short-term or a startup manufacturer. So put in your relevant information into the financial section. You can have partners. So do you have partners in this project? To me, that adds risk. So if you can steer away from project partners because it relies on someone else doing something, just adds elements of risk to the project. I'm all about de-risking projects because the government doesn't want to be handing out money and then in a month's time the company goes bankrupt or some problem happens. So de-risk it as much as you can. So give it a title. I've given some indications for the title. Talk about innovative, autonomous, robotics, any of those key phrases, and then a bit of a description about what it is that you want to do. Project plan. So that's obviously all about timing, implementation, milestones, things that are measurable for the project. Because you are actually paid based on those milestones or based on the spending of the money, and that's how you're measured from the government's perspective, rather than putting on jobs, because that's really the ultimate aim for this. You're not actually measured on the jobs, you're measured on your capital expenditure. So put in milestones, put in as many milestones as possible. So you're going to start the project off, you're going to develop a timeline, and every bit of machinery you buy is a milestone. When it gets delivered, that's a milestone. When it gets commissioned, that's a milestone. When it gets up and running, that's a milestone. And then maybe 6 months, once you're up to a full capacity or some other measure, that's another milestone. If you're doing any building works, slab, put in the construction of the building, all those sorts of building style milestones are also good as well. Project duration is 30 months. The quicker you can do it, the better it's going to look. I generally try to go for a 12-month to maximum 24 months, just because it's easy to measure on a Gantt chart. The other thing is, don't start the project when you submit it. So you want it to start. The general rule of thumb is 3 months after the you submit is when I generally start, and for simplicity I often start it at the next period. So it might be, this might open in middle November and close in December. They're not going to make a judgment on this until March. So therefore, start the project on the 1st of July. Just simpler for putting together the Gantt charts and timelines and things like that. And then you can bundle things up into nice financial years. Okay, so put in the project, and there we are. So various financial years. You will need the financial model to help break up those elements. So it's good to have a nice robust model that you can change a few things rather than have to put them straight into this online form and have to change it 100 times. Just makes it so much easier. Source of funding. So once again, government is low risk. So try to have the money available in the form of cash. If you add element of risk, like, we're going to get a bank loan, or we're going to get an investor, it adds element of risk. You can say you're going to use your own money, give evidence that you've got your own money, but then once you get the grant, you can get the money from wherever you want. You can then go out to investors and say, hey, Mr. Investor, I've got $1 million from the government. Do you want to contribute rather than me having to mortgage my house? So that's just so. De-risk it, use your own money as evidence first. If you get the grant, well and good, go get the money from wherever you want. Supporting documents. The more you look shovel ready, the more that they give you the tick to go ahead, and then you've got everything all ready to execute. Is going to look better than say, we're going to figure out what to get. So go and get all the quotes. Put it in a nice document, put a nice front cover on it so that there is no doubt. Once again, we're de-risking it. So you've done all the groundwork, you know the exact size of the machinery you're going to buy, exactly how much it's going to cost, you've got your finance sorted. So all these things is going to make you look better. Okay, so once again, your contribution, so you're contributing between 50 to 75%, depending on which grant it is that you're going for. The accountant will have to sign a letter for that, but the more you can prove that you have the cash, the better it's going to look. So now we get to the merit criteria. So this is what you are being evaluated on. So 40%, 20%, and 40% here. So I've got ways that I structure all these. So I put in lots of headings, lots of dot points, and we'll talk about the extent to your project will use advanced manufacturing technologies design. So this one, talk about the fact that you're using machinery that may not have existed in Australia before, that is going to look good. One of the first in the world. Anything that takes away a laborious activity and makes it a 24-hour autonomous operation, that's going to look good. But then you still need to have you still want to have operators or people to do some other things. So in the past, what I've done is take a lowly labour-orientated task and say this person's now going to run a 4-axis CNC and they're going to be upskilled. So they're now more employable, they're going to earn more, and that's sort of a premise for getting a grant. So anything that's using cutting-edge technology, robots, is going to sound good. So it's innovative. So I like to have innovative manufacturing processes, and also the product you produce is innovative. So I used to have an approach where the project must have two elements. One, it must have lower the cost. Just say you're making something that China can do as well. So you need to lower the unit cost so that you directly can compete with China. So based on a raw material cost, or a labour cost, and then two, you make something innovative that they can't make. So you've got some IP, some R&D, and you can talk about that to how you would get that aspect of the project as well. So how you improve the efficiency and competitiveness of your business. So use measurement of volume per hour, per day, whatever it is that you're producing, widgets, efficiency. Other things I talk about is quality. So measure the quality improvement. So you might have so much wastage based on manual activity. Once you use machinery, it's going to improve the tolerances down to, the tolerances, you can make it more a efficient product, and then you have less wastage as well. So that's one area to focus on. Efficiency. So Off the top of my head, I can't think of any others, but anything you can measure that is going to be better. So we've talked about, wastage, or electricity, and water, any other consumables, anything. Another one I used in the past was changeover time. So in a manual sort of style CNC, you might need to change out the tools. That might be an hour, whereas now it's a 2-second operation and it's done overnight. You can run things 24 hours. So add that into the efficiency game. Competitiveness, I mentioned that before. So that's for a unit production cost, you're now comparable with China. So here's your base product, compete with China, tick. And then here is your value-added product based on your IP, your design registrations, your patents, something that others can't make. So you want to be seen to be different to others, ideally in the world. The market opportunity for your product internationally. So the key is internationally. So if you sell it in Australia, you're generally taking work away from Australia. So look at the international market. Even if you just speak to some overseas, companies that may have an interest, get letters of support from them. Would you buy this product if it was available? And quantify the market size. So look at the dollar value and look at the percent of the market that you may have or you may be able to get, or what is it growing to. Broader economic benefits from your project, so job growth, value to the economy. If you're in a regional area, talk about that. If you're growing a regional area, talk about the supply chain. So if you're going to double capacity, the raw materials have to come from somewhere, or there's going to be contractors, or there's going to be delivery drivers, or whatever else is in the supply chain that's going to grow. Okay, so that's 40% of the project. So that's most of your effort is going to be around that. Impact of grant funding on your project. The likelihood that your project will not proceed without the grant. So you will not proceed with the project without the grant. You may suggest that you will do it on a smaller scale. You may talk about the fact that it may take you twice as long or 3 times as long. So talk about an impact, or what would you do without the grant. If you say you're going to go ahead anyway, or it's going to dilute the equity of your business, but you need to have a valid reason why you cannot proceed. One thing that I come across a lot is that the project might cost $1 million and you've got $5 million sitting in the bank because you've got a VC fund or someone invested into you. So if that is the case, and it's certainly well publicised, you need to talk about that in some sort of business plan or project plan or some sort of risk mitigation strategy, that those funds are allocated for other purposes. So talk about how those funds are going to be used elsewhere. And that you only have the exact amount, half amount for this project, and the investors or whoever else won't give you enough money to complete the project. And therefore, so explain how the grant will be used in terms of the size, scale, and timing. So I mentioned that. So it might be half the size, it might be smaller. You might make the generic widget as opposed to the value-added, product that you want to make, and then go into the export market. So you might say, we'll just do the simple product for domestic supply chain, but we're not going to go to export, and we're not going to put on jobs. So, ScoMo, if you want this project to go ahead, give us some money, and we're going to put on 30 employees. So that's sort of the message you want to get across. The total additional investment. So it's going to look good if you are putting in more money than what is the project is worth. So this one, also talk about the net benefit in terms of you may create more money, so net profit from the project. Where is that money going to go? Should you get $1 million of profit over the next 5 years, you're going to go and buy new machineries, or duplicate the line, or get an additional factory, or open up in a regional area. So what else is going to happen from this project? And then so this is the other 40%. This one, you can't really change too much. The first one, you can change. This is where you're going to be most influential on the project. This one here is about who are you, what have you done, are you any good, why should we believe you? So anyone that's a startup doesn't look as good as someone that's been running around for a long time. So your track record of managing similar projects. So I often do a timeline. So for some companies I've done, here's the past 10 years and here's the projects that we've done over the last 10 years, and it might be okay. In 2010 we did $100,000 new printer, and then in 5 years ago we did $1 million factory upgrade, and this was a result of this. So talk about a history of other projects that you have undertaken. Do some bios on the management staff and the technical staff, and also do a project structure. So who's the project manager going to be for this? Who's the admin? Who's the steering committee? So these are the sort of things that I would go to being the top 1% of applications. So we were talking about who is going to be managing the project. How often are they reporting? So there's a weekly meeting, to a briefing on the project. Once a month the steering committee will go and look at the project. So try to put as much information and make sure you look shovel ready and professional. So if you rock up and just say, hey, I've got 2 staff, I'm the boss, I'm going to do it all, it's not going to look as good as someone that's got 5 staff on the project. There's a QA person, there's a project manager, the project assistant, all these things, and when they're going to be measuring and evaluating things. So your access to future infrastructure, capital equipment, technology, IP, and regulatory or other approvals. So once again, I like to leverage off R&D on this one. So you have the know-how, you have the trademarks, the design, the patents, whatever it is, to make this value-added product that others can't make. So, or if you've got equipment that others can't have in Australia, so you've got the direct and only license that others can't do, then that is good. But generally I try to leverage off R&D. So bring in your R&D plan, and I'd put that as an attachment as well. So this is the R&D that we've done, these are the trials we've done, these are the results we've got, and to show that there is a market potential for your product. And then so supporting documents. This is where I try to put in as many things as possible. So the financial project plan, the milestone payments, the job. So I'll do a spreadsheet on, these are our current jobs, this is the mix of jobs we've got, this is our project jobs that are going to grow with the project, and then here's a total. So we might show that, hey, we've got an extra $500,000 of salaries to pay now. So that's a benefit to the government. So it's all about jobs, their titles, their job descriptions, anything you can show that you are ready to go on this. Risk management plans, Gantt charts, a simple Gantt chart. Don't use Microsoft Project and have a massive Gantt chart. Just a very simple project plan, and anything. So risk management, to roll the risks of the project. You don't get the funding. You haven't got the right staff. You can't get into export channels. Anything to do with COVID, that's a good one at the moment. So put as much information as you can. This section is not evaluated, so it's not part of the merit criteria, but I like to make it as thick as possible to show that we are, shovel ready. So this is just basic attachments. Evidence from the board, tick. Accountant's declaration, tick. Partners, I don't generally do that. There's a project plan. Add a bit of the business plan into this as well, is what I do. And then a detailed budget. So, and with the cash flow arrangements over each year's. So that is in essence the main part of the application. So yeah, best of luck with completing that. Once again, check out my financial model either in YouTube or LinkedIn, wherever you've come from, and you'll see how I've structured that. So best of luck.